Hey Mama, welcome to lesson 3, how to create a satisfying fuel pool meal. Satisfying doesn't have to just be for S meals. It can be for E meals and fuel pool meals too, but you do have to make sure that you're paying attention to how you're building that fuel pool meal and getting in all those lovely macronutrients and all the things, okay? Let's start with a review of the 3 important benefits of fuel pool meals. This is just a review, so this is from the last lesson, all right? So 3 important benefits. It's a lighter meal approach. I mean, a fuel pool meal is going to be light in calories by design, and that can be scary. It doesn't need to be scary. We're going to talk in the next lesson about how to use that to your benefit, okay? And some things to watch out for. But yeah, it's a lighter meal approach. However, sometimes that's just what you need or want. I mentioned that early, if I get up in the morning and I have to get going pretty quick, I don't always want a big heavy meal. Or even with a carb meal, an E meal, I might not want to eat a lot of food, okay? So a fuel pool meal is a great lighter meal approach at those times when you need to eat, but you're not that hungry and you just need something, a little something, right? Number 2, it's a great way to balance out all those other heavier, bigger meals that you're definitely going to have, because we have no trouble having those, do we, throughout the day and the week. So it's a good way to add some balance. We don't need all of our meals to be, 800 calorie meals. We don't need all of our meals to be super heavy and huge meals that keep us full for like 5 hours because we overdid it, okay? It's good to have that balance of those lighter meals, all right? And then lastly, fuel pool meals, one of the benefits that you may not have thought of before is it gives you an opportunity. That's a fun word, okay? It's an opportunity for you to practice learning to enjoy the taste of real food without a bunch of cheese sauce and ranch dip piled on top, without a lot of extra butter frying it up in the pan. I mean, I love me some butter frying it up in the pan, but it's wonderful when we can just enjoy the taste of a cucumber. That's one of my favorites. It tastes really great once your taste buds get used to enjoying those foods the way they're meant to be enjoyed without a bunch of stuff on top, okay? Now, in this lesson, we're going to talk about how to create a satisfying fuel pool meal. We're going to talk about 2 approaches to doing that, all right? There's others, but these 2 will help you get started with a solid plan to create your own fuel pool meal. The first approach, it's a little bit of a cheat approach, but I'm going to call it the Smart Mama approach. The first approach is the cookbook approach. Get yourself a Trim Healthy Mama cookbook. I don't care which one. Get any of them. Get a Trim Healthy Mama cookbook. That's going to be the easiest way to do it because they're labeled in there. Now, word of caution. All of the recipes are labeled S, E, or FP, and some of the recipes have all 3 of those on it because there's variations on the recipe. Just because it's a recipe labeled FP doesn't mean it's a full meal. It's just a recipe. It might be a side dish. It might be a small entree that needs some side dishes. So don't forget that just because it's a recipe, that doesn't mean you don't need to put other things with it, because we don't want wimpy and skimpy fuel pool meals. However, starting with the cookbook will help you get started on a solid approach to this. So, number 1, pick a THM cookbook fuel pool entree recipe, okay? Pick a THM cookbook entree recipe. That's the easiest place to start. And the reason I say that is because since it's an entree or a main meal or a main dish or whatever, it's already got the protein in there for you, and it's the right kind of protein in the right amount. Lean protein, not too much because we're pulling it back. And so if you start with an entree recipe, you're already on a solid footing with your fuel pool meal. Then, Smart Mama approach, Unstuck Mama approach, add more non-starchies and leafy greens. That could be in the entree, but it could also just be on the side. we talked a whole lot about that yesterday. We'll talk some more about it too. But you can have lots and lots and lots of non-starchies and leafy greens in your fuel pool meal, and you should. You can really make that a huge meal to help keep you full. Okay? Number 3. Now, with the cookbook recipe, that's an entree, you just need to check the fat. It probably has 5 grams of fat or a teaspoon of fat in there. Just make sure it does, okay? Because maybe it's a recipe where they wanted you to pick your own. Or maybe you're using a blogger recipe. You didn't want to use the cookbook, and that's okay too. Just check for the fat and make sure that there's 1 teaspoon or 5 grams of fat. Now, if you're not sure, if you're kind of like, I think there's some fat in here, but I don't know and I don't want to go too far over, when in doubt, try this. Add 1 teaspoon of MCT oil to your finished dish, or maybe your finished side salad if you're adding your non-starchies that way. You can have 1 teaspoon of MCT oil in addition to maybe that other little bit of smidge of fat that's going on in there because it's such a fast burning oil, okay? Now, let's look at some examples of some very popular, yummy fuel pool entree recipes. These all come from the Trim Healthy Table 2017 cookbook. On page 90, the chicken fajita soup. I know that soup can be something that if we're not careful, it's just broth, and that's certainly good sometimes, but sometimes we need more food than that. But this is a pretty good chunky soup, which I prefer. I want to feel like I've eaten, not just drank something. So the chicken fajita soup, it has some veggies in there. It's got some stuff going on in there, but it's a good fuel pool recipe. However, we don't want to take any chances on getting hangry in 2 hours. We want to make it 3 hours and not just like struggling to make it 3 hours. We want to make it 3 hours without thinking about it. We don't want to be worried about it. We don't want to be feeling that last hour, if you know what I mean. So let's add a side salad. We can add we're going to add non-starchies. We're going to add a side salad. And then of course for your dressing, and I know this is a struggle for some mamas, but this is just changing your taste buds, changing your habits over time. It's going to need to be a vinegar-based type dressing, maybe something with some MCT oil in it, maybe, depending on what's going on in that soup with the fat. Just pay attention to that. But here's the beautiful thing. You can use any kind of seasonings and herbs that you want to, any type of vinegar that you want to. Personally, when I use vinegar dressings or just some vinegar on my salad, I like to add just a little bit of sweetener because I don't know. I like vinegar, but I like to take out that little tart kind of bite to it. Add a little bit of sweetener, okay? You can totally do that. So you are going to need to stick to that. And I know it does take a little time to get used to eating a salad without goopy ranch dressing, but you can do it. It's so worth it because you're going to really taste the actual flavors of those beautiful non-starchies in that salad. All right, another example, number 2, is the Sweet Lime Taco Joe's. Sweet Lime Taco Joe's. You can tell I kind of like the Tex-Mex thing there, right? That's a great recipe, but it's going to need some sides for sure. And so when I think about here, anytime we have any sort of taco night or fajita night, anything like that, we're looking at usually veggie trays here because, of course, my family may be having guacamole or salsa. They might even be having cheese dip. They might be having sour cream mixed with salsa. And sometimes I have some of those things too. But if I'm wanting to keep my meal a fuel pool, I'll just have the veggies like maybe some cucumbers. I know I say it all the time. I really love them. The English cucumbers, the long ones. Jicama, both of those are great. And if I need to keep my meal light, fuel pool, then I will sprinkle just a little teensy bit of salt and some nutritional yeast on top of my cucumber slices and my jicama sticks. And that is a wonderful way to get to enjoy that crunch and that crispness of the cucumbers and the jicama without gooping it up with all those other things that would take me out of my fuel pool setting. Now, you could use salsa. Salsa could work. Just check and make sure that it doesn't have any sugar in it. But salsa would be something you could dip those in if you also like, and that's a fuel pull and gets in more non-starchies, okay? Don't discredit salsa. It's got great tomatoes and onions and sometimes peppers. It's a great way. It's like the only veggie my son will eat, honestly. And I'm like, okay, you have at it, buddy. All right, and then my favorite soup. Now, this isn't a chili because chili is my favorite soup. I don't think that counts, but my favorite soup, page 160, Trim Train Italian soup. Now, there is a Trim Train taco soup, and it's not in any of the cookbooks. It is only on the membership site. It's pretty good, but I don't love it as much as I love Mexican type taco type soups. I love this Italian soup. It is amazing. It's got lots of good stuff going in it. It already has some great non-starchies. But let's say you want to add some more. Let's say you want to beef it up with some more non-starchies. Let me tell you what I do. I'll do it a lot. It's good. I'll throw in some green beans to the soup pot. I don't know what it is about this soup and the seasonings, but it works really well with green beans thrown in. I've also seen mamas shred up some zucchini because, sometimes we get overloaded with zucchini from the garden, and they'll add zucchini to this soup also because that doesn't have like a lot of taste, but you're adding that great, wonderful non-starchy. So if you're wanting a cooked, I know the other ones I gave were not cooked. They were raw veggies, but if you're wanting a cooked veggie, throw in some green beans or throw in some zucchini and let it simmer in that soup pot. That makes a great, huge pot of soup. Be warned, it's a very large serving recipe, okay? That is a fantastic fuel pull soup, and it does not taste or feel like a fuel pull. So I highly, highly, highly recommend it, okay? All right, now that's the cookbook approach. Highly recommend that. It's the easiest. Hello. But also for some of you more advanced mamas that's been here for a while, you've been doing Trim Healthy Mama, you kind of got the cookbook approach down. Well, now it's time for you to maybe try the next approach, and that is the lean protein approach. The lean protein approach. Number one, what I mean by that is pick whatever lean protein that you want to have for your meal. Pick your lean protein because sometimes that will kind of dictate the sides and the direction of the meal, right? So pick your lean protein, and believe me, we're going to cover some different types in just a minute. Add whatever non-starchies you want to add that go with that lean protein. Round out with leafy greens, and then add your 1 teaspoon of fat, your 5 grams of fat. Super simple, but start with your lean protein because in our fuel pull meal, we need our protein to be lean. So we do have to be selective. In our S meals, the protein can be lean, it can be fatty, it doesn't matter. But in our fuel pull meal, it needs to be a lean protein, okay? Now, let's go through some very common, easy examples of this approach. So we have a little chart on our note-taking sheet if you have that out in front of you. We have our lean protein. Here are 3 examples: chicken breast, tilapia, rinsed ground beef. So let's talk about how that might look at Casa Fox, okay? So chicken breast on the grill, okay? That gives it a lot of good flavor. You can put whatever seasonings you want on it. Feel free to do that. You can marinate it in different types of things. That's totally fine to do. But grilled chicken breast, and then with that, the non-starchy that is so perfect is grilled asparagus and grilled portobello mushrooms. Boy, just on the grill, it just brings out the flavor, and you don't even need a lot of fat or anything like that going on. It's just that grill flavor, so good. So grilled asparagus and grilled portobello mushrooms could be what gets thrown on there at the end. And then you can plate your hot meat, your hot chicken breast, and your hot asparagus and mushrooms. Plate that on a bed of spinach. I like baby spinach the best. That's your leafy green there. And it will kind of start wilting it down just a little bit, which actually makes it even healthier, easier to digest. It'll kind of wilt it down a little bit, make it easier to eat. And then you didn't even need any fat for any of that. So you can drizzle 1 teaspoon of extra virgin olive oil all over that. Definitely squeeze some lemon. Dress that up however you want. But that'll be a great, easy grill meal. All right. Next type of lean protein is tilapia. That's just a white flaky fish. you can use it in any meal setting. That's the great thing about these lean proteins. They can go in any meal setting. It's all in how you cook it and prepare it, right? So tilapia, I like to air fry it in my air fryer because then it doesn't need a bunch of fat. I just lightly spray the little pan, and I don't need a bunch of fat to fry it up to get that good flavor. Oh, it's so good. So tilapia, I like to use blackened seasoning, like blackened, blackened chicken, blackened fish, whatever. It's just some seasoning I found, I don't even know, probably Aldi, to be honest. Just check your labels on your seasoning blends. Make sure there's no sugar or cornstarch or whatever, stupid stuff like that. But I just use a seasoning blend like that. You can use whatever you like, air fry it. And then on my non-starchies, this is where I'm going to use my fat, okay? So on my non-starchies, I get my little pan out, and I'm going to use 1 teaspoon of butter. This is for 1 serving, okay? You can make more, of course, but 1 teaspoon of butter for frying up or sauteing some sliced peppers and onions, okay? So I'm going to saute up some peppers and onions with 1 teaspoon of butter. This is a single serving, okay? And then leafy greens, you can have some romaine lettuce. And here, if you want to do it, you can take those big romaine lettuce leaves and you can stuff it with your tilapia and your sauteed peppers and onions. Maybe put some salsa there and kind of have like a taco if you want to eat it that way. Many people really enjoy that because it feels like a taco. I love that idea and I love those flavors, but I just chop mine up and have a big entree salad personally. But that's either way is a good way to do it. All right, and then lastly, rinsed ground beef. Now, here, I know money is tight and beef cost, so you just need to make your best choices, okay? I try to buy, personally, pretty lean ground beef, even for my S meals. Not quite lean enough for a fuel pull unless I rinse it. So in that case, you just cook your ground beef like normal, and then when it's all done being cooked, you rinse it with hot water for like 2 or 3 minutes. Like 30 seconds ain't gonna cut it, okay? It needs to be 2 or 3 minutes that you rinse it. And then you have it's washed off a bunch of the fat that got cooked out, okay? So you have your rinsed ground beef, and this is a great time to use a totally different type of non-starchy. This is a great time to make spaghetti squash. Now, even though it's a squash, it's actually a non-starchy. It's not a squash like butternut or even pumpkin can be, a little carby. It's like really low carb, okay? So cooked spaghetti squash, I love to do mine in my Instapot because I don't have to cut it ahead of time because they can be hard to cut, I think. You can just plop it in that Instapot with maybe like a cup of water and then press your buttons, use your little Instapot book to know how long to cook it, walk away. Come back later and it's done and easy to cut. You don't even have to poke holes in it. It's pretty amazing. So, but you can cook your spaghetti squash any way you want to, but this is a great time to do it. And of course, then once you get your spaghetti squash, you can scoop out those seeds and you can shred it. And it's kind of like noodles. It's very different. It's a really cool squash if you've never had it. And then you can kind of make like a spaghetti. Open up a jar of on-plan spaghetti sauce. There's plenty of options out there. Plenty. Marinara spaghetti sauce. Just check the label. Make sure it doesn't have any added sugar and you're good to go. Okay? Aldi sells a great one that we love. So you can find it really anywhere. But you can use your rinsed ground beef that's been cooked. That's now a fuel pull type. You can add it to a pot of marinara sauce. So you got a little bit more non-starchy going on there with your tomato sauce. And then you can plate that on top of some spaghetti squash noodles. All right. And of course, this is a great place if you're having spaghetti, so to speak, for a side salad. And here I might use a teaspoon of avocado oil and make some dressing with that. Avocado oil is so anti-inflammatory, but yet it doesn't taste like avocado at all. It has almost no taste at all. So if you don't like avocado, but you want the health benefits of the anti-inflammatory, try avocado oil. You can find it anywhere. Wonderful oil to incorporate for anti-inflammatory purposes for sure, okay? So that's just a great way to do that. And you know what? For the family, if they don't want spaghetti squash, okay, have them a big pot of whatever noodles they usually like or will eat, okay? This is for you. If they want some spaghetti squash too, great. If they don't, okay, let them have the pasta. All right, we don't have to fight about it, but you need to take care of mama's needs also. Yes, take care of your family, take care of you too. All right, now let's talk about a problem and solution to round out this lesson. Oh, this might be my favorite one, okay? What do you do when you just aren't sure if what you just created is still a fuel pool or not? So what do you do if you tried the lean protein approach especially, and you're like, okay, I picked my lean protein, I added non-starchies, I rounded out with leafy greens, and then I added a little bit of fat, but I'm not sure anymore. Or maybe you took that cookbook recipe and you started with the entree, but then you added some stuff, and you're like, I'm not sure if this is still a fuel pool or not. What are you going to do? What is the solution to that? The solution is you're going to celebrate, and you're not going to worry about it, because what you've done is you have created a beautiful, healthy, on-plan meal that is full of non-starchies and hopefully leafy greens too. You, whether you picked a fuel pool entree recipe or you started with a lean protein, you know that your meal is lighter than maybe what you were doing before because you have a lean protein to start with. So what if it actually has 10 grams of fat in it, maybe even 15? Who cares? It doesn't matter. It's still lighter and healthy and full of all these beautiful, wonderful, healthy foods and ingredients. Who cares? You're going to celebrate. And, you know, if you really were trying to do a fuel pool and you get to the end of that, making that recipe, and you're like, oh no, wait a minute. I forgot to think about the fat that's in the recipe and I added a little bit more. Okay, well then you can do it different next time. You've learned something. I tell you what, you can listen to me or any other coach all day long. You can listen to Pearl and Serene all day long. You can listen to THM admins all day long, until you just get in there and do it and start making it and making mistakes and thinking about what you did and figuring it out and trying it again. That is how you're going to learn. And that's how you're going to get better and better at making the types of meals that you want to. But at the end of the day, celebrate that you made an on-plan, healthy meal, and it was lower calorie anyway than if you had started out with a S meal and added more and more to that one, right? So just celebrate that. It's okay. It was on plan. Don't get too bogged down into those little minute details that really don't matter too much when you're taking this healthy lifelong approach. All right? All right, bye-bye, ladies.